Action.
Action. We're on the air. So here's the brain now. We're doing our little 20A review with the brain. And the most realistic brain really is this one, which we'll get to in a second. But this is sort of colorful. This is sort of overall a nice brain. There's going to be actually the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, the occipital lobe. It should be having actually 5. This is okay. Well, temporal lobe, and there is this fissure right here. This is a fissure. There's going to be a fissure way back here. Where's a good example of the parieto-occipital fissure? There's no really good example, so I won't be able to bother you with that at all. Okay, so that's good to know. I can only ask questions on things that are pretty, right, and very well represented. So that's the deal. So with that in mind, we don't actually even see the 5th lobe, which is the insula. Okay, so that's way deep. We would have to separate through this opening here, and we're not able to do that. Okay, so that means that most of the motor activity arises from the frontal lobe, and so this is our primary motor gyrus right there, and here's the central sulcus, which divides that from the parietal lobe and the primary sensory part of the body, somatosensory. Okay, these actually, the rest of it is sensory, it's just not somatosensory. This is where the homunculus is located, and here is all of the association areas. Okay, then here is the primary optic cortex and the way back here, and all of the association areas around it, and the occipital lobe, and then over here in temporal, we're going to have such things as hearing. Language is going to be actually somewhat larger in those of the female persuasion. More than half of the females of our world are probably global, actually, in their language locations. So, and in the way back here, we have some special software, which, remember, is the highest pre-command level of the motor system. That's our cerebellum. We're not actually seeing so much here of the basal nuclei, but we can slightly work our way down, slowly work our way down as we. This is kind of nice. Let's come over here for a second and notice that we do have a pons here. We have a midbrain level at this here. We do have the medulla at this level where it says number 12, and we have an olive on the side there. Okay, and then back over here, we can notice that we have the optic chiasma, and then we're not really seeing anybody. Oh, here on this one, here on is the pituitary gland. There's going to be a little isthmus. There's going to be then above the pituitary is the hypothalamus. All of this is thalamus. Here's the little linkage that links up the two sides of the thalamus. Okay, so it's pituitary, infundibulum, hypothalamus, and then up to the thalamus. And notice that there's a little dimple right here, and that's where the foramen Monro is, that connects the lateral ventricle with the third ventricle. The third ventricle is going to have a connection right through here with the canal, okay, or the aqueduct. This is the cerebral aqueduct going to the 4th ventricle. Okay, from the 4th ventricle, the cerebrospinal fluid will leave the ventricular system and go out into the arachnoid spaces. Up here at this level, we're seeing the association from side to side. Okay, so actually association fibers are all only on one side, and so this is going to be the left and right connections through the corpus callosum, left to right, lateralization connections. Okay, so then when we come down here, this is the diencephalon. This is the midbrain right here. Okay, the diencephalon, as indicated, was this pituitary, hypothalamus, and thalamus. The midbrain is the corpora quadrigemini, right here, and the we were calling it the golden arches, is the cerebral peduncle. The cerebral peduncle is actually seen a little better on this one. That's the cerebral peduncle. These are projection fibers coming down through here, and sort of up and down, but mostly it's projection fibers. Okay, so coming back to this side, then we have the pons, we have the medulla. Okay, at the mid sagittal cut, we're going to have this view of the cerebellum. It's characteristic and called the tree of life, the arbor vitae. These gross anatomy now, models probably are limited then beyond this sort of superficial view, but we can at least note that here at the midbrain level that we're going to clearly have a superior colliculus and an inferior colliculus, so you're going to be able to get a question possibly on the reflexes